Let's play some fantasy football. Imagine that you are Chancellor in a Farage-led reform government. What would we expect from you on Wednesday?
Well, what we're going to get on Wednesday, I fear, is the most socialist budget in living memory. I think it'll be an assault on jobs. I think it'll be an assault on small businesses, on entrepreneurship, on hard work. And that will end up being an assault on growth. And we're in a crisis. You can't tax your way out of a crisis. You've got to grow your way out of a crisis. And that means reducing the size of the state and motivating people with hard work, taking risks, setting up businesses, being an entrepreneur. And that's how you get growth in the economy. Instead, we're going to get a bigger state, more bloated, more inefficient, and with outcomes, frankly, that are not commensurate with the money that's being poured into the public services.
Well, I noticed you swerved past my question about what you would do, but let's talk about them.
So let's talk about let's come on to what we would do.
Well, no, let's just deal with them. They have said that growth is their central objective,
Correct.
but they can't even get to that point until they've sorted out the hole in the public finances.
You can't grow an economy if you tax everybody to the hilt, to the point where actually it doesn't pay to take hard work.
But they're not going to tax it. They're not taxing working people.
So they say. Let's wait and see. If you freeze personal tax thresholds, if you put national insurance up on employers, all of these are taxes on working people. If you tax small businesses, you talked about the Federation of Small Businesses earlier, more, then you diminish risk. I'll give you an example. There's a roofer I know in the Cotswolds. He had 28 people in his business. It's too hard. The risks were too high. The grief was too much. He's gone down to 2. That's just one example of people who are saying it's not worth the hassle employing people, all the new regulations, all the new taxes. That is a major inhibitor on growth. The public sector doesn't create growth. The private sector creates growth. But that's why what we should be doing is we should be saying, no, you've got to reduce the massively inefficient, wasteful government spending all over the place.
There are lots of reasons why your roofer might have got rid of 25 or 26 people, including, by the way, the absence of growth under the previous administration.
And growth is falling. And that's why we were very critical of the previous administration. I mean, they're no friends of ours. So we've got to create growth. And I repeat the point, you cannot tax your way out of a crisis. You've got to grow your way out of a crisis. Well, and this government talks the talk about growth, and then I fear that we're going to have an assault on all of the things that create growth in this forthcoming budget.
Well, I know you guys are never going to be wishy-washy in your criticism, but let's talk about what you want to do. In your manifesto, I seem to remember you projected cuts of something like 50 billion or thereabouts?
Absolutely.
In government spending. Let me ask you the question. What would government stop doing?
Well, interestingly, having now been elected to Parliament and with whistleblowers coming to me, frankly, those savings are more than achievable. Whether it's just the inefficiency and the waste. It's the inefficiency, the waste, the abuse of public money. It's everywhere.
Tell me one.
It's everywhere. What I said before is, in your household budgets, in business budgets, you're saving 5 quid in 100. Right? You say the same to all public sector workers. You've got to stop wasting money, reprocure. And it is legendary. It's everywhere. That number is a small number. The other point, you had Lord King in there.
Hang on. Stop for a second. If I save 5 quid in 100 in my household budget, that probably means that the family doesn't get a holiday. I'm asking you, you're going to save 5 quid in 100 out of the government's spending. What aren't we getting? Fewer border guards for example, in immigration?
Last weekend it was...
Fewer police, fewer soldiers?
You've asked me a question. Let me answer. Last weekend, it was reported that the fraud in the benefit system was £7 billion. It's a multiple of that. It's probably 30, 40 billion. Fraud in benefits alone. I get doctors and nurses coming up to me almost every week talking about the waste and inefficiency in our healthcare system. It is everywhere. 50 billion is easily achievable. The other point, you just had the former Governor of the Bank of England in. We should not be paying voluntary interest on all the printed money, which is £30 billion plus a year. Economists now agree with me. That's serious cash. That's how you grow your way out of a crisis.
I know, this was your point about quantitative easing and so on, but OK, all right. Let's move on. The big story in, I guess, your bailiwick, the immigration question this week has been that the number of people crossing the Channel on small boats so far this year exceeds the entire total for last year. Now, this was a big issue for you in the election. How would you stop that?
It's a big issue for the country. It's almost the number one issue. It's very simple. The government's policy of smashing the gangs is clearly not working. And sadly, people are literally dying. The number of deaths is going, it's a record at 59, I think, this year. The only way to stop the boats is a variant of what Australia did. We've talked about it before. I will repeat it again. You've got to safely pick up and take back to France, which we are legally entitled to do under the 1982 UN Convention of the Law of Sea. And by the way, France has a... Hang on.
France has French Coast Guard say you're not coming, you're not landing them here, mate.
France has a legal obligation, right, to do the same, which they are in breach of. So we are legally entitled to do this. If the French Coast Guard say you're not coming here, they're in breach of international law.
They're in breach, but if they say no, mon ami...
Well, then we've got a standoff.
We'll go to war with France?
No, I'm not saying go to war, but you can have a friendly standoff with friends. And this is the only way you're going to stop the deaths. Ours is the kind and compassionate policy.
All right. The other big story of the week, reparations. What's Reform's policy on that?
Look, it's complete nonsense. It's absurd. I mean, are we going to claim reparations from China for COVID, for leaking the virus out of a lab? I mean, frankly, we probably should, but look, folks, it's a nonsense. It's ridiculous. Focus on the future. Focus on getting things right. And I just think the whole story is it's sort of made up by people who, frankly, they've got nothing better to do. It's ridiculous.
Richard Tice, thank you for your time this morning.